close your eyes. Imagine you just woke up, but not in your room, in your soft bed, with the blanket warmed by your electric heater. You woke up here, in 1380, inside a French castle, and the first thing your lungs feel is not air. It's an ice knife sliding down your throat. The indoor temperature of the room where you sleep is 6 degrees below zero. Not outside, inside. The stone walls that were supposed to protect you spent the entire night sucking the heat out of the environment, like a dry sponge absorbs water. And now they radiate a cold, damp heaviness that penetrates through the thick wool of the blankets, passes through your bones, and finds the core of your body. Your heart is beating faster. Your organism has detected the threat. You are a member of the nobility. You have privileges that 90% of the European population will never see in their lifetime. And yet, if you had slept in an open bed like the ones we have today, you probably wouldn't have made it to morning. The cold makes no distinction between a peasant and a duke. It creeps under doors, descends through extinguished chimneys, crawls across stone floors, and acts like a silent predator. Patient, methodical. The question was never whether the cold could kill you. The question was, what did you build to stop it? Welcome to the world of the Clos, the box bed. A piece of furniture that, at first glance, looks like a wardrobe. That up close looks like a coffin. And that, in practice, was the only reason countless Europeans survived the nights of the Little Ice Age. To understand why anyone would willingly choose to sleep inside a closed wooden box, you need to understand the betrayal of stone. Castles were not built with comfort in mind. They were built to withstand catapults, fires, entire armies. The walls were between 2 and 4 meters thick, granite, limestone, shale, materials with extremely high thermal absorption capacity, which means that during the winter months, those walls functioned as radiators in reverse. They absorbed any heat generated inside the environment and slowly dissipated it outward, keeping the interior frozen with a brutal, impassive efficiency. From the 14th century onward, the problem became catastrophe. Europe entered the period that climatologists call the Little Ice Age, a climatic anomaly that lasted from approximately 1300 to 1850, and that reduced the continent's average temperatures by up to 2 degrees Celsius. That sounds like very little. It is not. 2 degrees in the average means devastatingly colder winters, destroyed harvests, rivers freezing in spring, and nights that killed healthy people in their sleep. And the fireplace? It was an illusion of comfort, not a solution. The heat produced by a fire in a stone hall with 30-foot ceilings rises immediately to the ceiling, warms the air nobody breathes, and disappears up the chimney. At floor level, where cold, dense air accumulates, the temperature remains lethal. The average human body at rest produces approximately 100 watts of metabolic heat. Dispersed across a massive space, that is nothing. But contained within 2 cubic meters of closed wood, that is primitive yet functional central heating. The physics were simple. The space had to be radical. The Clos, as the Bretons called it, and the Dutch called bedstead, was, in essence, a sleeping wardrobe. Built from solid oak, with walls 2 to 4 centimeters thick, sliding or hinged doors that locked from the inside, and a mattress that wasn't foam. It was a sack of straw, corn husks and dried leaves, covered in sheep, fox or deer hides. You climbed in, closed the doors, and waited. Within 20 minutes, the microclimate began to establish itself. The heat from your breath, your sweat, the natural radiation of your skin, all of it trapped inside that closed volume. The internal temperature rose gradually from 6, 8, 12, 15 degrees. It wasn't warm, it was survivable. And survivable in that context was the difference between living and dying. But there was a biological price to pay, and it was not a small one. The oxygen inside the box depleted quickly. The air became thick, saturated with water vapor and carbon dioxide. The smell was visceral, a combination of wet wool, moldy straw, days of sweat without bathing, and the smoke that crept through the cracks in the wood. Anyone suffering from any respiratory condition faced double jeopardy. The cold on the outside, slow suffocation on the inside. And there was something else. Something most historical guides politely ignore. The sleeping position. Rarely, if ever, did people lie horizontally in these beds. One slept semi-upright, back propped against rigid straw cushions, knees slightly bent. It was not just for lack of space, although the smaller versions barely fit a grown adult lying flat. It was terror. A visceral, near-universal belief that lying completely horizontal was dangerous. Bodily fluids would flood the brain, the lungs would collapse under their own weight. Or, and this was the darkest fear, the most primitive, death itself would not be able to tell a sleeping man from a corpse. Sleeping upright was a declaration that you were still present, that you chose to remain here. If you think the claustrophobia and the unbreathable air were the worst problems, it's because you never met the permanent residents of the woodwork. The warm, damp heat accumulated inside the box created the perfect breeding ground for bedbugs, fleas, and lice. They didn't need to hunt you. You came to them every night and locked yourself in the same space for hours. The combat was constant and primitive. Dried herbs scattered between the cushions, sulfur-based powders rubbed into the wood, specific prayers to ward off pests. Medicine and superstition operated at the same level of effectiveness, which was nearly none. And then there was the most rational fear of all: fire. Medieval castles were lit by pine torches, tallow candles, and animal fat lamps. The risk of fire was constant and real. If flames reached the tapestries covering the stone walls, and they did regularly, fire spread with brutal speed through the corridor, across the hangings, along the curtains, and the doors of your oak bed, swollen by the heat, could jam shut. The same wood that protected you from the cold became a perfect trap. A funeral pyre with hinges. Surviving a medieval winter was not a passive condition. It was active, daily work, full of rituals and fears that seem absurd to us today, but that were, in that context, completely rational. Today, we complain when the air conditioning takes 2 minutes to cool the room, when the mattress doesn't have the right firmness, when the sheet wrinkles. We forget that, for centuries, the simple act of sleeping was a technical and psychological survival operation. The box bed was not a luxury. It was a tool of resistance against an environment that was actively trying to erase human existence through the winter nights. Every detail of that dark, claustrophobic, foul-smelling piece of furniture represented centuries of trial and error, of bodies that did not survive to tell what had gone wrong. Those dark oak boxes are silent monuments to human ingenuity, to the refusal to accept the death sentence the environment imposed, to the will, irrational, stubborn, magnificent, to see the sun rise one more time. But the lit Clos reveals something even more disturbing about medieval sleep, something modern science only confirmed recently. In the diaries of the era, one expression appears repeatedly: the first sleep and the second sleep. People would fall asleep, wake in the middle of the night, lie awake for 1 or 2 hours in absolute darkness, and then return to sleep. This was not insomnia. It was the normal, biologically natural pattern of human sleep before electric light. What did they do during that interval of darkness and complete silence? What has science discovered about this biphasic behavior? And what does it tell us about the modern epidemic of insomnia? That answer will change the way you see every night you spend awake at 3 in the morning. But that is for our next meeting. Subscribe so you don't get left in the dark.